Europe has warned that trade agreements with the U.S. may be at risk following President Donald Trump's announcement over the weekend of a new 15% global tariff on all imports. So for more, let's bring in Sean King, Senior VP at Park Strategies. It's good to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Good to be with you.
A lot to go over here. So first off, I guess, do Trump's new tariffs that he's kind of threatened over the weekend, does that violate the agreement that's signed right now between the U.S. and the EU?
Yeah, pretty much. Ironically, it comes down to 15%. His new random tariff that he came up with through Section 122 is 15%, which is what the EU had anyway. But the thing is, it's not done on this so-called reciprocal basis that he announced on Liberation Day. He just pulled it out of thin air. And it can only last for 150 days. And it's illegal, as per the Supreme Court says. So the EU is like, why are we going to be bothering paying this investment and buying this energy and opening our markets if your own court's not even allowed to charge what you want on our products? So whether or not it's a violation, I'm not sure, but it definitely makes Europeans think, if it's 15% today, what will it be tomorrow? And what will he do after these expire in 150 days? And what happens if Democrats win Congress in November? What if Trump just decides to ignore the Supreme Court in general? Like, what are we dealing with? So I don't blame Europe for calling a pause on this and seeing what's what before asking its 27 member states to ratify this deal that was made based on another understanding.
Yeah, so you think that this is a good idea by Europe, the EU, to say it's going to actually suspend the ratification of this deal just until they get more clarity, or is there more clarity really coming?
Well, I am an American, and obviously I'm not in the business of advising foreign governments. But if I were the EU, I would totally wait and hold off. I don't blame them at all. This is a huge setback for the Trump administration. And I mean, would we negotiate anything with Europe if their own courts were telling them they couldn't do something? I mean, we would do the same exact thing. And I think we're just going to get more confusion going forward because these tariffs will last 150 days. Then Trump's going to threaten to override the Supreme Court. Then he may lose control of Congress anyway. So anybody wanting clarity, they're going to be left wanting for a while because I think things are only going to get more chaotic. I hope you didn't have me on the show to offer you answers because I have probably more questions than you do. And I'm actually here.
No, I think at this point, most people know that we're kind of guessing what's going to happen because things change so rapidly in this environment, right? But there have been a number of trade deals signed recently with the U.S. If you look at some of the U.S.'s Asian trading partners like Japan and South Korea, could what Donald Trump is threatening now jeopardize the trade deals that are already signed with those countries?
In some cases, yes. In other cases, no. And before we leave Europe, even though the UK is not in the EU, it is still part of Europe. And ironically enough, the EU trade deal, which is now called the Turnberry deal, was signed in Scotland, which is no longer on EU soil. Now, the UK is really getting screwed here because their trade tariff on their products, which Americans pay, which this Supreme Court decision finally makes clear, the fact that we're even having a discussion about the cumbersome process of possible refunds to U.S. importers proves once and for all, despite what President Trump says, it's actually Americans who pay the tariffs and not foreign countries or companies. But the U.K. had negotiated a 10% tariff on its products. So now it's going up to 15%. So the U.K. must be very upset by what's going on. Same goes for Singapore, because they were down to 10%, as well as Australia and Saudi Arabia. But then, like, say, Philippines, they negotiated 19%, Vietnam 20%. And India is about to finalize a deal for 18%, but I heard their delegation canceled their Washington visit this week after the Supreme Court ruling. Now, three big Asian agreements: Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Japan's a parliamentary democracy. And with her new supermajority, Prime Minister Takaichi, I see her picture there, great timing. She can run this through Parliament no matter what, the Diet. And the fact is, Japan's already the #1 foreign investor in the United States. So a lot of these deals were going to happen anyway, and they can sort of fudge it in terms of loan guarantees. And they've so far only put up $36 billion of their promised $550 billion. And whatever kind of tributary payments they have to make to Trump as part of some protection racket, they see it worthwhile to lock us into the alliance against mainland China and North Korea because they're so insecure in the region, understandably so. Korea and Taiwan are very different, though, because they follow a federal system like we have in the U.S., where the president and the legislature are separate. So they have to sell it to the legislature. And neither legislature has approved the deals their leaders signed with Trump. Now, in Korea, it's the same party between the presidency and the National Assembly. So it's probably just pro forma that it's going to get passed. But in Taiwan, it's a very different story. You have William Lai of the Democratic Progressive Party, which despite its sound is not a left-wing party. And then you have the KMT and the TPP. They run the opposition and they want friendlier trade relations with mainland China. And they're promoting this idea of U.S. skepticism on Taiwan. And just this weekend, a KMT rep say, why are we turning over the crown jewels of Taiwan semiconductor to the U.S. if Trump's own court won't allow the tariffs?
Yeah.
So this could put into great jeopardy passage of the agreement as it regards Taiwan.
We have just 1 minute left, but I want to get in one last question. Donald Trump preparing to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping in April. Does this threat that he's making kind of give him less leverage in terms of negotiating now?
Definitely, because Xi is playing the long game. He is also focused on his own sense of decoupling. He doesn't want to depend on us for any technology, especially when we can put on further export controls. I support decoupling anytime President Trump wants to get tough on the PRC. I know you guys want to sell him your canola, but it's bad news over there. So I would say stay out of mainland China. But now Trump knows that Supreme Court is going against him. So this definitely gives Xi Jinping leverage in dealing with Trump. And obviously, they'll also argue about Taiwan and whatever else.
Yes. OK, there's so much to go over. Sean King, Senior VP at Perk Strategies. Really appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us.